Hey Revolutionaries, I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with Mark Firehammer, where we're talking about his latest reinvention as an author and his book called The Echo and the Voice. That's right, The Echo and the Voice, where he's using this metaphor of the echo. He refers to your upbringing, your culture, your religion, where on the planet that you grew up, basically the echo of maybe previous generations and what you think your destiny might be because of that. But also, in contrast to that, the voice represents your inner voice and your inner path and the path that you want to strike through the world. And so it's a very interesting conversation. I really like the idea of his book. And we talk a lot about how, as a young person or just as a person growing up, Mark's inner voice was louder than the echoes. I think for a lot of us, the echo is louder than our voice. And maybe over time we grow into our voice. But anyways, we discuss and explore this idea of his in his new book here. And we talk a bit about how his voice was always louder and how he ended up dropping out of college, becoming a singer-songwriter, really following his voice. And so it's very interesting, I think, for people out there that are interested in changing or getting more aligned or listening to their voice a little bit louder than they have been. So I assume some of those folks are listening to the podcast always. Anyways, it was a really great conversation. Check it out. Can't wait for you guys to listen to it. But before we get there real quick, I wanted to remind everybody, you can always go to JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com, sign up for the email list, where you can find you'll get an automatic download, of the 7 simple ways to prime yourself for reinvention. That's right. You need to get primed. If you're not, I think those 7 ways are still valid. It probably needs updating, which I should do soon here. Also, of course, add in exploring AI, anything with AI. So if you're not doing that, you need to do that. But that's another way to get yourself in the right mindset to be primed for reinvention if you're looking to do that. Anyways, go there and check it out. That's where you need to go. All right, let's get on to Mark's episode.
Welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim.
So do you have a plan? Is there anything specific you want to?
Well, I sort of have a plan.
Okay,
so
cool. I'm happy to wing it.
Yeah, well, we're going to wing it too. Hey everybody, hey, this is Jim. Welcome to episode 124 of Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. I'm talking today with Mark Firehammer, and we're talking about the echo and the voice and his latest reinvention as a novelist, among other things, I would say. So Mark, welcome to the Reinvention Revolution.
And thanks, Jim. Do you like to be called Jim or just Jim?
Well, you know what? It's the name of the podcast because I thought, when I started the podcast, it's got to be somewhat unique. It can't be just a general term for search and just so people can find you and realize it's yours. But Jim is actually a nickname that my piano player friend, shout out Jackie Warren, who's very famous regionally here, and people know her all over the place. I don't know. It's a nickname she was calling me. This goes back years ago now.
I love that it dates back. I love that you brought it with you from the past.
So some people call me that just because they know the podcast. Some people know, like Jackie calls me that because she just has always called me that for whatever reason. Some people don't call me that. Whatever. It's okay.
Well, I'm going to call you Jim.
Okay, and you're all the above.
I want to be a part of that club.
Okay, cool, man. Well, yeah, it's got a good backstory anyways to the name. Well, speaking of names, okay, before we dig into things here, I need to ask you about Firehammer. Okay, this is like a very interesting name, and obviously I imagine it has some relation to Native American tribes or some history there, but where's Firehammer come from?
Yeah, everybody goes to one of two places, either where you went or they go Germanic, and that's actually where it comes from.
Oh.
It's
Okay. Okay.
German,
Right.
and of course, like all the names that came into this country, as immigrants, they Americanized it. So originally it would have been Firehammer.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
Firehammer. It's funny because here in the Western Massachusetts Valley, it's a very liberal bastion, and a lot of
Okay.
people apparently here change their name for spiritual reasons. And
Oh,
this is,
really?
yeah, this is the only place I've ever lived where people thought that I made it up. And I always have the same answer. I always say my daddy's was a firehammer, my daddy's daddy was a firehammer, and
Wow.
my
Okay.
daddy's daddy's daddy was a
That never
firehammer.
crossed my mind that you would have made it up because it's
Oh,
so interesting, and unique, I think. But
yeah.
yeah, I was thinking because didn't you say your parents were from the Midwest or somewhere? I was thinking that, there's maybe he's from the Great Lakes or the North Dakotas or something.
Yeah,
That sounds
Illinois and Wisconsin, respectively.
okay. So it sounded like a tribal name, and obviously Illinois is a big
But I
thing.
mean, look at my features. There's just
Yeah,
there's not much Native American
yeah,
going
you're
on
not
there.
escaping. Yeah, you're not escaping that. Anyways, well, okay. So the reason I ask it, another reason I ask it, I guess, is because um, I was trying to understand where your echo might be coming from
Yeah,
in relation to this novel that you've written. So
yeah,
maybe you can explain to people what the title means, the echo and the voice, um, and kind of where that came from.
yeah. It's a great question. This is a project that I really started 40 years ago, and
Mm,
gave it serious consideration last year, and then began writing in December. The echo is essentially the voice of culture, which is it's an artificial thing that human beings invented to provide structure to commerce and everything.
yeah.
And the echo represents the voice that tells us and sort of suggests to us how we should live, what's the right way to live.
Mhm.
Whereas the voice is that small, still voice that human beings are all born with. Some hear it louder than others, some don't hear it at all. And
Right.
the echo can talk pretty loudly. And I was born into a family that was run by a dictator. My father was very dictatorial.
Hmm.
And so I was the youngest of three. And so I knew very early on that I was going to learn to navigate a world that was trying to tell me how to be when I came into this particular life, knowing that I wanted to be me, not someone else's projection or expectation of me. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So I love this analogy or metaphor, however you would describe it.
Yeah.
Um, and if you don't mind, I wanted to read just a couple little passages here if I could find it.
Don't mind at all.
Just because uh, it's just interesting about just to kind of drive this point home here. So I'm going to say this real quick, just so people get an idea what the book's really about. So a man stood there smiling, a sadness in his eyes so deep it almost shimmered. Jonas didn't know him, and yet he did. The man knelt, bringing his face close. His lips moved. The words, as they floated towards Jonas, didn't pass through his ears. They arrived directly inside him, like the way warmth moves through skin, or how a dream moves through sleep. And here are the words. The voice you hear, never let it go. So this is an older man finding Jonas as a young child. He's maybe 7 or 8 years old. And he hears this guy's bending down and talking to him. The voice you hear, never let it go. So he's trying to impart to him his experience of life. And here's just another little paragraph to talk about where this guy's coming from. The man's smile faltered for a moment, and sorrow passed across him like a shadow. Jonas didn't understand the sorrow, but he recognized its weight. The man touched Jonas's hand, light, light as a falling leaf. Quote, "You will hear the echo," the man said. "It will speak louder and louder. It will promise you safety, praise, belonging, but it will ask for a price. It will ask for your voice." So that's pretty heavy, man. Just to start out, to give you a flavor of like, hey, what are we stepping into
Sure.
as we kick off this book here? But
It's the first
like I
time
said,
I've heard those words from someone else.
oh really? Oh, okay,
Yes,
cool.
and so I really appreciate you reading it.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just thought like, man, this really it sets the scene of like what's going on here. Like, yeah, maybe I haven't thought so much about this for my own life,
Mhm.
or maybe I've run into some of these exact situations, and you weren't sure how to react,
Yeah.
or you made a bad choice, or this guy's obviously looking back with some regret, but he's
Yeah.
trying to share his life experience, right?
Yeah.
Um, so in saying all that, there's another little nuance here in terms of the echo and names. And another question I had was thinking about this idea. I had no idea what the book was about. I remember you told me about it when we first connected. He's like, "Oh, I'm going
Yeah.
to send you a copy of it." Okay, okay. All right, I'll check it out. Echo in the voice. Now I understand. I'm like, wow, okay, that's pretty heavy. Uh, One thing I find curious, though, is that you're writing under a pen name.
Yes.
Okay. So, and that's JW Kindbloom. Is that right?
Yeah. It's pronounced Kindbloom,
Kindbloom. Okay.
which is interesting that you bring that up because the first thing you asked me was about my actual surname.
Ex- exactly.
Right. Kindbloom was actually my parents' ancestral name from Sweden.
Okay.
Yeah, and my parents are both gone,
Okay.
and my mother was really my only ally in my family because I was the black sheep and I was the
Oh,
only
interesting.
boy, right? So I thought, okay, it's a strategic move to use a pen name, Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain,
Okay. Gotcha.
because I've never written a novel before. So it's just a good business decision.
Right.
But I wanted to honor my ally in my life, which
I
was my
gotcha.
mother. And it's a beautiful name and it's much more suited to what this book is about than the
Hmm.
fire and the aggression of Firehammer.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking like, maybe he's just wants to step away from that his own echo of his own name or something. I couldn't figure out what was going on there, but man, I knew something was going
Yeah, I love the way you just put that. I could have either been moving away from something or toward something. And in this case, it's more
on.
accurate to say I
Right.
was
Right.
moving toward my ally rather than away from my
Yeah.
those that tried to oppress me.
Right. Right. Well, it
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense, and it obviously informs the story.
yeah.
Obviously, I mean, I assume it's not autobiography. It's a fiction story, but obviously, you have to. The stories come from somewhere. They come from your experience,
Oh,
right?
for sure. It very much threaded
Right.
autobiographically with the literary mechanisms to, move the story arc and the characters along.
I
Yeah.
got you. Okay. Well, I'm glad you started bringing up those technical writing terms, because this is another question I have for you, and that is, uh, how did you know how to write a novel? My understanding is you haven't been a writer, and this is your
Yeah.
first foray. So, how did you know how to do this? Did you have to study something? Did you take a course? Like, what's going
Yeah.
on here?
Well, I wouldn't say I took a course, but one of the things that I've done in my life ever since I was a little boy, and I may have told you the story about the ping pong table.
I'm not sure.
When I was 6 years old, I loved ping pong. And the local
Okay.
rec center, walking distance from the house, they were going to close it down for the season, seasonal change.
Okay.
And I wasn't willing to give up ping pong. So at 6 years old, without even thinking that is something I should or shouldn't do, could or couldn't do, it would be hard, it would be easy, whatever. It didn't occur to me to think about that.
Right.
I went home into the basement of our house, and everything that a 6 year old needed to build a rudimentary ping pong table was in that space.
Okay.
And so I built a ping pong table. Now let's fast forward through life. I'm in my 60s now. The same exact approach to writing a novel was the one that I made to building a ping pong table. First thing you do is what is a ping pong table? What is a novel, right? And I very quickly learned that a novel best written for a first timer starts with the structure. And I'm a big proponent, and I live my life by the 7 Habits by Stephen Covey.
Okay.
Begin with the end in mind. If you know where you're going to end up and you build a plan around that, then it all falls into place. So that's where I started. I wrote down the story. What story do I want to tell? And then
Okay.
I figured out what characters would be needed in order to best deliver the moral of the story, if you will.
Right.
And with that structure in mind, it became very easy to then fill in the blanks like an architect that has a
Got it.
blueprint would then
Right.
build the building around those drawings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily obvious. I guess the way I think about it, it might be like, yeah, you got to have a plan, figure out what this is, what am I doing,
Yeah.
really approach it with from that first principle sort of concept of like, even though you've read books, been around books, right,
Right.
your entire adult life, like
Yes.
you really don't
Y-
know what a novel is unless you're paying attention, even
exactly. And
even
I've
if you're
approached.
reading and enjoying it, like
Yeah. I've
right,
approached everything in all my different careers from a craft point of view. If I
yeah,
understand what I'm going to do, it becomes easier to do it better and better. And a
yeah,
good example is the songwriting. I've written nearly 100 songs.
mhm,
And early on, like many young artists, it's pure it's pure inspiration. They pour out of you, right? But then as you grow older and responsibility and all the mechanisms of making your life as a musician, they burden your mind a little bit, and inspiration doesn't flow so easily as it did when you were 18, 19 years old.
right,
So what I did is I learned the craft skill of writing songs from the technical point of view so
mhm,
that I could then have the life around me be the inspiration. If I can see it and witness it and understand it, I can then write about it. And
right.
when you understand how a song is structured, that's the craft aspect of the approach. I did the same exact thing with the book.
I see. Very
Yep.
interesting. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that because I just actually was just talking to a buddy of mine who's written his first book, and
Ah,
it's a book of fiction. And he's been a PhD in finance, worked for the World Bank, like a very academic, studious, amazing thinker kind of mind guy. Uh,
cool.
and he was just in Cleveland here, where I live locally, at Loganberry Books. So if you're looking for a bookstore, if you're going to do a book tour or something when it comes out, it's a cool indie bookstore. And I was asking him the same question, and it sounded like he took a course because he's more of an academic. That would be like his approach to understand how to write a novel. Uh,
Interesting.
so this was like um, one of the outputs kind of the course where it's like, you know what, I always wanted to do this. And the same thing in his mind. He's like, I've been thinking about this for 25, 30 years. I always want to write this book, whatever. It's
Yep.
like I didn't exactly know what to do, but I decided to take this course. And through the course, it's kind of spawned and released this novel for him in that way.
Yeah. Well,
So,
there's many paths, there's many ways to get
yeah,
to the end of any road. And I
okay,
dropped out of college because I very quickly, and I learned in high school that it moved too slow for me. The curriculums were too slow. And I'm
right,
wired to take information in very, very quickly. So it makes absolute sense for some people to go take a course, but they
right.
just slow me down.
Yeah, I understand. I'm kind of somewhere in between.
Yeah.
I need to get moving here. I like what do I always say when people ask me what I like to do? It's like I like accomplishing things.
Right.
So that's like a different mindset than people that like to study things or
Right.
people that like to discuss things. And like discussing's cool and reading's cool, but what are we doing? Like what are we trying to accomplish? Let's accomplish something.
Oh, sure. No, I got that sense of you in our first conversation. So that doesn't surprise me at all that you say that.
Yeah, yeah,
And I appreciate it too, because if that's what makes you do,
yeah,
right, it's the doing in life that really matters.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
What
I
you
think
do
so.
produces the results that you want, hopefully the
Right.
ones that you want.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah, but that's kind of how I've always been. Yeah, and I've in certain areas that's like a massive skill I found out. It
Yeah.
comes naturally to me, but in some arenas it's like, oh wow, okay. There's
Right.
like brilliant people that don't have that capacity. They're brilliant, but they don't have this other capacity to act in a certain way or whatever, and vice versa.
Right.
It can be a limitation too, I think, in certain arenas. But it is what it is. Anyways, so one one more thing before we leave this novel idea. Okay,
Mhm.
is so this has been building a long time. You're on the cusp of releasing it. Is it released yet, or
It's actually out now in paperback. Sales have already started.
okay?
I've sent a lot of emails out to bookstores and whatnot. So it's
Oh,
out in
cool.
paperback as well as the ebook on 8 or 9 or 10 different platforms worldwide.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, the ebook. Okay, is there an audio version?
Working on that. I tried to
Wow.
hire a narrator and I
Okay.
liked it, but they couldn't quite dial in the range that I needed for the book because the third person, have you skimmed it or did you read it?
I didn't read the whole thing. I just skimmed the first like chapter two and sort of read the forward. I was thinking about what
Okay.
he. were
One of
doing
the
stuff.
challenges with this particular book is it's third person omniscient. So there's a godlike voice.
Gotcha.
There's also dialogue between individuals, but the godlike voice gives you the thoughts that the individuals don't say.
Right.
And when you narrate a book like that, you've really got to have an actor or a performer that can differentiate between those voices with
Makes
some
sense.
kind of change. And
Sure.
nobody that I auditioned could quite reach it, so I'm doing it myself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
going to
you're
take
going to
some time.
record it yourself with your
Yeah,
voice?
yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Well, that's a challenge too.
Well, many years of recording music, I'm comfortable in the studio. So
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense to you. It makes sense to you, I guess.
yeah.
Do you know this company, by the way? It's called In Audio. That is
Sort of rings a bell.
IN Audio. In Audio. So it's a audio distribution. Like if you have an audio book,
Okay.
you might want to check them out in terms of distribution and marketing and finding readership markets for it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Automated pay platform, that kind of thing. I just have a buddy of mine's son works for them, and they just broke away from Spotify. So they were bought by Spotify years ago under I think it was Playaway or Hideaway. There was an audiobook company here locally that was making a big splash, and Spotify was on this spree of buying all the audio assets in the
Yeah.
world. So they bought them, but they reconfigured and are agreed to sell it back to some of the original founders, and they changed the name. Now it's called In Audio, and they just went live today um, with their independence.
Oh,
So
that's cool. I've already
yeah.
chosen the platform. I'm using Draft to Digital because there's a lot of
Oh,
players
okay.
out there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably tons of them, but just FYI. Okay. Wow. All right. So this is an amazing thing that the novel is happening. So congratulations on
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
But you know, that's not exactly where you started. You said this has been building forever, so I want to rewind a little bit,
Yeah, sure.
and I want you to share some of your stories about being a recording artist, which
Yeah.
is amazing, and dropping out of college because again, it kind of speaks to um, maybe your frame of reference. Maybe it touches even your idea of trying to escape the echoes early on,
Mhm.
maybe, or that your inner voice was stronger than maybe the average person, let's
Mhm.
say, and you felt compelled to follow that.
Yep.
So what was going on back, way back when you were starting in
Yeah.
college? Why did you
Yeah,
drop
let's
out?
talk about that moment because it's a really important one within the context of the novel especially.
Okay.
And I was a smart kid, and when I was in high school, it was a challenging time because the schools in Florida were overcrowded. So I was a
Oh,
smart kid. It was split sessions where the upperclassmen went in the morning and then the lower classmen went in the afternoon. But
mm,
since I was taking advanced placement classes, that meant that this 14, 15-year-old boy that was very adventurous with a very active mind was having to go to school all day. It felt like a job, like an 8-hour day. And so my grades began to slip because I was distracted by my passions, what I wanted to do. I cut school, sailing boats, going water
right.
skiing when my parents were at work. So I got to the end of
School's
that
not
and
that engaging at this
what
point, right? It's kind of boring. And school's not that engaging. It's sort of boring, probably.
exactly,
So
exactly.
it's like,
So my parents pulled the trigger on boarding school my junior year,
oh,
and
they
that
did. Oh, that's
yeah,
interesting.
they
Okay.
they did the right thing, even
Parks
though
not
they
gonna
did,
make it. We got to do something.
yes, they did the right thing, but for the wrong reasons.
Oh,
We won't get into that.
all right.
But that junior year was extremely formative for me because I now was subject to a different set of rules. Instead of the parental rule of watching you like a hawk and telling
Hmm.
you what to do, the rules were
Hmm.
now more institutional. It's like the rules of the road. As long as
Right.
you're driving in the right direction in the right lane, everybody's is okay. So this was different for me. And I'm like,
Okay.
wow, this is awesome. In a way, I'm much freer than I used to be. So let's fast forward another year. That school shut down my junior year, so I didn't get to graduate from there.
Oh my God.
Right.
Oh,
So
geez.
I was thrust into another decision by my parents. Again, they did the right thing for the wrong reasons. And I ended
Yeah.
up going to a Christian school. And
Okay.
I had a choice. It was either Christian school or military school. And
Mm.
it was a clear choice for who I was at 15, 16, 17 years old.
Okay.
So I did that, and I had gotten all my academics out of the way. So my senior year was 7 hours of music and 1 hour of academics because I had already gotten all my credits.
Wow. Oh,
This
that's
is
interesting.
what
They
set me,
allowed you to do that.
yes, this is what
That's
set me up
cool.
for the
I think I
college
would have loved
thing.
to do that. I took all kinds of music stuff, but I was just, it was
Yes.
a different thing for me. Cool, man. Sorry to interrupt. Go on.
No, no worries. I was offered a scholarship and a full ride to a Florida university, and um, I thought, oh, this is maybe a dream come true, you know? So I looked into it, and like the only thing that they were going to really prepare me for was teaching.
Hmm.
And I knew I didn't want to study, Bach and Beethoven until I hated it. And I didn't want to learn about pedagogy and all that stuff. I didn't want any of that. I wanted to play. I wanted to feel music. I wanted to experience music. I wanted to use it as a pathway of self discovery and self realization. So I, went to bed one night and thought hard about it. And I knew there was going to be trouble when I made the announcement to my parents because at this point I'm living at home with them.
Right, right.
And that was the end of my home life, my home family life.
Hmm.
My dad, the dictator, wasn't having
Either
it.
you do this or you're out.
Exactly. And
Wow.
so I had already started to play the local circuit. And
Yeah.
so I was fully prepared to go out into the world and experiment as a musician. I wasn't writing songs yet. Uh,
Okay.
but I never looked back. I never regretted it. I've really never had a job since then.
Hmm.
I've always kind of done my own thing and thrived in my point of view in those decisions.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, did you ever actually go to college, or it was just were thinking about it? You're like, I can't do this.
I actually got my first year out of the way in a semester. And
Okay.
then my teacher said, "You're a smart guy. Why don't you take the CLEP tests? It's a college level a something placement test where
Okay.
you basically test out of as much college as you can."
Sure. Yeah.
So I qualified after the CLEP test to come in as a junior at
Right.
university, and that's when I made the decision to because they gave me the scholarship because they knew I was bright.
Right.
That's
Right.
when I made the decision that I wasn't going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, so I had 2 years of college, and
It's
it's
kind of far out. You're like, man, you're so close, dude. Like, you should.
well, my parents really believed that this was going to be the thing that got me on the path that they believed in. Finally, all
Right.
the wildness is going to be,
Right. Oh, it'll grow out. It'll grow out of that.
so well,
You've seen the whole picture.
there we have it. Yeah, yeah,
Right. Well, cool. I mean, it's just interesting to learn about. I think um, I wasn't wild enough when I was younger to do that. I became wilder later, you know.
yeah.
Back thinking about that, I think I was just thinking like, God, this is kind of fascinating. It'd be interesting to try that. Um,
Right.
my mind got there later, but yours was already there.
Well, I'm willing to bet, Jim, that a part of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because we were talking
Yeah,
about the echo and the voice earlier.
yeah,
Is part
definitely.
of the
Well,
reason why your wildness came later is you got to the point where your mind, your soul, your spirit, whatever, your personality, call it whatever you want, said, I think skipped a step. There's something that I still want to experience that is wilder than what I've been doing. Is that safe to
uh,
say might be a piece of that in there?
well, I don't know if it's exactly right. So for me, I was always doing whatever I wanted to do. I was doing the day job, the corporate thing, but I always played music. I always lived like multiple lives.
Oh, that's
So
good.
there was nothing that was like where it was just smoking and not burning over here the creative part.
Right,
And my job was creative, doing
right,
advanced engineering. But yeah, I just as I kind of got older, started to think and meet more people, get outside my family, outside my hometown or whatever, where you where now it's a more of a conscious choice
right.
instead of just a behavior, within your peers or something to kind of think on a daily basis. Yeah, what do I want to do? Yeah, why can't I do more?
Yeah,
Because then you see other people. So I always had a little bit of it there.
yeah,
Always had. I was never fully into the corporate world or into the square box. I always had like half a foot out because of music,
right.
and I've kind of been fully out over the last I don't know 10, 15 years.
Sure. What I
and
love
moving
about your
moving faster to that, other space that I might want to explore.
Right. What I love about your story, Jim, is that you're what I refer to as successful at at the conforming that you did. You were successful at it. The corporate
Oh
world,
yeah,
you
I could
did
have
what was
done it.
expected of you and you were successful at it. And
Yeah,
that's something that I always want to make sure that people understand, that my point of view leaves room for that. There's a
yeah,
whole subset of human beings that can't be successful like you were within the system. They need to be
right.
a little bit farther outside the system, and I admire that you were able to navigate that.
Well,
And
that's true, and I've definitely known that over the years with all the people that
yeah,
I've run into and whatever, and you're just like, oh, I see this person could never have a normal job, could never be in this
right,
environment. And you try to put them in there and they literally freak out and self-sabotage, destroy their life.
yeah,
And it's like, but yeah, I was someone, I guess this is what, I don't know, my struggle, but also a fun insight that I get to have is that I can exist in all those environments, and I have existed in all those environments
right.
at very high levels, very successfully. And I don't know, it just makes life interesting, I guess. So I'm like open to, like, I'm trying to understand where everybody's coming from.
Oh yeah, life, that's well said, because life should be interesting. We're here to have a great experience.
Right?
Even when there's challenges, we have choices that either make it a great experience or not. And you've been
Yeah.
able to self advocate and have the agency to do that. That's a good
Right.
thing.
Well, that's my, part of the mission of the podcast here, or goal, or whatever, or what makes you feel good. Hopefully, the listeners get a kick out of it, is helping people maybe unlock some of those things within themselves.
Yeah.
Helping them figure out how they can shift around a little more easily, or how they can escape the echo if the echo's too loud, or bring their own voice up louder if they need to be. You know what I mean? Like you said, there's no one right way to do it. There's just your experience and how you see it and what has worked for you, that you can share with people.
Yeah, I like
Some
that.
people
There's
really need to hear it,
there's no one right way, but there's the right way for each individual. And
That's right.
that's a beautiful thing. And unfortunately, some people don't realize that it's not entirely their own fault. The messaging that we've been,
Well, that's right. Right. That goes too loud, and
yes,
they didn't even know it was an echo. They just assumed this is how life
this
is, or
is how
whatever.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's another cool thing to kind of grasp that metaphor.
Yeah.
Take a look at the book. Okay, so all right, let me. So I just love this kind of rewinding and figuring out where you're coming from. Can you share with people a little bit, because this is, you're of this certain age, and I know the music scene, how the world has changed, how everything got digitized, whatever. Explain to people though, like, okay, you drop out of college, people think that's probably insane hearing that today. Um, but back then, to be musicians specifically, I'm talking about. But back then, there's more live music venues. Music is more of a bigger industry now. It's who knows what the music industry now is these days. But tell people your experience, because you were telling me about how you perceived what you were going to do, that you were touring and camping out and kind of doing it in a specific way that's like, oh, okay, maybe it's not as far fetched as people might think.
I don't know that you could do what I did now. We're talking mid 90s.
Yeah,
Now, it went even far. You ready for me to answer the question?
yeah. Go ahead. Sure.
Okay. I didn't want to be famous. I would have navigated fame if it happened to happen,
Yeah.
but I went out with the intention of, I want to be free, because keeping with the theme of the echo, the expectation on me from the world around me and my family and in school was, you're going to work 8 hours a day at least, and you're going to, you know, build a life. And I didn't like that number. I like 2 hours a day, because
Right.
performing in the clubs in the 80s was a
Yeah.
4 hours maximum. That's the long
Oh
gig,
yeah.
right?
That's a long
And
thing.
the
Wow.
rest of the time, you're either playing around and being wild and enjoying yourself, or I made the choice of striking a real balance and giving myself the education that I wanted in my
Yeah.
own form, rather than the curriculum that the
Yeah.
school offered.
Developing yourself. Yeah.
Right. So let's fast forward now past the 80s into the 90s. I went to New York to get a record deal, worked undercover as a butler at the world headquarters for Sony Music.
Oh, wow.
Right,
Cool.
and I was serving Tommy Mottola his, breakfast and lunch
Oh, wow.
in
This is,
on the top floor of that building
yeah,
in Manhattan. And
right,
this was right around the time that he married Mariah Carey, just to put it in a timeline.
right.
And what I discovered then was that the music business had already moved toward an almost complete commoditization of the artists themselves.
Mhm.
I'm sitting in on the A&R meetings. There's, a couple of dozen executives there. They're screening videos. They're listening to music. Pearl Jam was one of the examples of the time when I was there. And the way they talked about the artists was as if they weren't even really human.
Right,
They were derogatory, they were disrespectful, and they only cared about one thing: how much money can we make? What do we've got to do to maximize the profitability of this artist? And the
right,
artist is not even involved in the conversation. At that point, I knew I didn't want a record deal. And the moment I came to that conclusion, that's when I met the guy that gave me a record. I didn't have a deal, but I met a
yeah,
guy, third generation music guy. Grandfather was famous. Father owned the biggest studio in the city. He worked for a very famous guy. We met adjacent bar stools in Chelsea and we got to talking. And he says, "Why don't you come to the studio and we'll work on some stuff together?" He'd never done an album, he'd done commercials like
oh,
jingles
I see.
for candy bars
Okay.
and beer.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So he was wild about that. He was a drummer. And so I walked away from that after a year in 1996, 1995 actually, with my first album in the can, full band, horn
Mhm.
section, the whole nine.
Wow,
And so I didn't have a deal, but I had a record. And here's what's important: when I went out on the road, I had merchandise to sell.
right,
If you've got merchandise to sell and you can leave a piece of yourself behind, and you're willing to live at a frugal level. I eschewed the whole hotel motel thing.
right.
I camped, hammocks, the ground, my van, cooking over the fire. It was a beautiful experience, and I didn't work more than 2 hours a day, right?
Yeah, it's
So
amazing.
I got my wish. I didn't want to be famous. I wanted to be free. And I traveled full time, never went home for 5 years. I didn't keep a home. That's part of the sacrifice that I was willing to make.
Right, right.
And it gave me the time to learn about history and the world, humanity, civilization, what are the differences between them. And
Hmm.
much of my writing during that time was about that growing worldview and historical view of what it is to be a human being.
Right, right. Well, yeah, what a lesson in humanity for sure. Of
Yeah.
just being out and interacting with audiences, but then just the way you did it, the style, and just
Yeah.
figuring out the capacity of human beings of being what you could do. If I'm figuring out what you could do,
Yes,
positive.
yes. And the college
Yeah,
kids were the best.
yeah,
Because
right. Oh, yeah.
these young
Audience.
idealists, and they sit and listen to every word that you sing and every chord that you play, and they want to know who you are, why you're doing what you're doing,
Right.
and it was the best. It was really
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, and at that time, I think, yeah, you're right. The college circuit was a pretty nice circuit.
Yeah,
These days,
NACA.
with the change in the world and political views and all that kind of stuff, it's probably a little rougher scene these days. I would
Yeah,
imagine.
I know a couple of public speakers that are trying to do what I was doing then, and they're
Yeah,
having a very difficult time because the interest on campus just isn't there. They're all
yeah.
on their
Even like
screens.
that used to be a great outlet for comedians. They would tour and do college campuses. Now it's
Exactly.
like
Yeah, yeah.
they don't want to touch any of that.
Yeah.
It's just world changes. Just with times change, things move on. Anyways, hey, thanks for thanks for sharing that because I want people to kind of imagine like kind of where you were coming from and what and
Sure.
how that was beneficial to you. It didn't sound like you crashed and burned and had to get the day job, later on or anything like that.
Yes, yes.
So, okay, there's a couple other things I want to make sure I mention here before we get out of here. And one is this: now that people understand your background of being a singer-songwriter, writing music, experienced performer, is I noticed in your background that you had this project that you worked on more recently, involving AI. It's called Artist Imagined. Can you explain to people about this? Because I remember when we were talking before, you mentioned I think this piece of software that probably you helped with the project Moises. Uh, but explain what this is and what you were doing technologically with music.
Yeah. This was a really important piece of what pulled the trigger on finishing the novel
Okay.
is, as I've said, I've written 100 songs, probably more if I look at my works in progress notebooks.
Hmm.
But 100 songs, and by 2000, I'd only released 21 of them, right? So here I am, a craft songwriter, committed to the craft. I've got almost 80 songs in a folder that will never see or be heard by human beings, right?
Right.
So the year 2025 rolls around. I meet a friend. He says, check this tool out. Suno was the one he was telling me about.
So, okay.
And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, this is interesting because many of those 80 songs that were still sitting in the folder, I didn't write for my instrument. When I say my instrument, I mean my voice.
Hmm.
I have the pure, clean, high tenor. And some of the songs were more aggressive and angry and needed more of an Eddie Vedder or, Guns N' Roses treatment.
Yeah.
And so I knew they didn't belong coming out of me. And so here I am, this man without a band that can write a song about anything. Give me a topic, tell me what you want, and I will write that song. And I sometimes do that just for practice,
Sure.
flexing the muscles. So a man without a band, a folder full of songs, and all of a sudden there's a tool that will allow me, if I do it diligently with the same kind of care that I brought to building the ping pong table when I was 6, or the marketing agency when I was in my 40s, I just paid attention to the details and the steps. I could produce any one of those songs to sound like what I heard in my head. Just by iterating and asking AI, nope, that's not quite right. I want the male vocal to be more of this. I want the guitars to be deeper. I want this, I want this, I want this.
Right. Right.
The end result was a country album because I knew I was never going to record those songs. A country album that follows the rites of passage of mostly a man. You're young and wild, you want to date a bunch of girls and then you get married, you fall in love, but then there's trouble in the marriage and then maybe, and
Right.
then you're working to, I followed that rite of passage. So if you listen to the album, Heartland, it's called, it follows that trajectory of youth to old wisdom, right? I was like, oh my God, I can do an album now in any voice that I want and structure the album like they did in the 60s, where the whole album meant something, not
Right.
just a
Right.
few hits and then sprinkled in the B-sides, right?
Right. Right.
I can now tell a story without having to spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars booking time, hiring musicians, writing out the parts, all that. I could do it all from my computer in my home. And by the time I was done, 30 days, 4 albums.
You did
Country?
4 albums in 30
Yes.
days?
In 30 days. The first one lit the fuse. The country one lit the fuse. And then I was saying,
Okay.
now
Wow.
I'm going to do an Americana one. 10 songs
Okay.
on that one. That came out brilliant. And then I thought, okay, now I want to prove a point. I'm going to choose 10 songs and I'm going to make a rock album and a pop album. The same
Okay.
10 songs in the same order.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And because I'm a craft songwriter, I
You
had
can do it.
I had to slightly rewrite the lyrics for the difference between pop and rock because they would say it in a different way.
Right. Right.
But the end result is this is a pop album. This is a rock album. This song works in rock. The same song works in pop. It was really just to prove a point just to myself. It wasn't about selling albums. And that's what I said, okay, now my main character in my novel, I can create an album that's in his voice. And that's one of the things that makes the novel unique is that he writes the songs during the book. There's moments that he experiences where he writes the song. And by the end of the book, you have the ability to listen to the entire album. And
Okay.
it's all in the voice of the main character. So it's really cool.
Oh my God. There's just amazing stuff going on. It's like mind melting to me. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
what? Oh my God.
I pinch
I
myself daily. I pinch myself daily. Yeah.
well, like we talked earlier, I said, I'm trying to write some music this year, kind of really for the first time, trying to take it a little more seriously.
Yeah.
And I just found the struggle of figuring out a process and just thinking through it, all the things you got to go through to figure out, what do I what do I really want it to sound like? What really turns me on? All these kind of things. But there's all these tools now that are out there that you can really go crazy with. So I need to look into this. So this particular tool is called Suno. Is that right?
Suno is one of my favorite ones, and you'll like it too, Jim, because the latest version will allow you, because you're a melodist, you're a saxophone player,
Yeah.
you can record a simple melody. It doesn't have to be fancy because it's not going to be what's in the recording, but you're going
Yeah.
to give it the notes and the key and the
Right.
pace. You can
Right.
play your melodic line. It doesn't even have to be a long line, it can be 8 bars, 4 bars, whatever. And
Right.
then say, all right, I want to use this as the context and the bass
So
line to build out the entire song. So it's
yeah.
very much a reflection
I might
of,
try
of
this.
you just as much as it is the AI
Right.
iteration.
All right. I
Yeah.
might I might try this just for fun. That sounds interesting.
Oh, you should. You're going to have a blast,
All
Jim.
right.
I'll tell you.
Maybe you've created a monster. Okay. Anyways, well, thanks for sharing that because I was like, oh, I gotta learn more about these tools. What's going on out there? I just thought it was a very interesting project for people listening. It's like everybody's busy and has their things that they need to do every day, and they don't have time to maybe discover or think about these other things. So that's
Yeah.
another way we can help sharing with people that are listening out there.
Can I mention
Uh,
one more thing about the AI,
sure,
Jim?
sure,
There's a lot of, we're in this time where everybody's divided into different camps of thought. And
yeah,
AI, you either think it's going to bring on the end of the world, or you think it's an exciting tool. And my
yeah,
experience of it is that AI is not capable of creating like a human being is because it doesn't have lived experience.
right,
And that if you look at it from the point of view is I'm not trying to cheat and do something that I'm not already good at. Instead, look at it as an accelerant. I'm already good at this. I want you to give me an assist like a good hire. If you've got a
right,
company, a good hire is going to give you an assist. That's the best way to look at AI. The sad part about this for me is all my years in the music business, I have a lot of friends. Some of those friends have made it pretty clear that they disapprove strongly of what I've done.
cool,
And that
okay,
makes me sad because all I'm doing is creating what I've always imagined. It's not at all cheating. They
well,
didn't
all right.
write
So
the
it's a
songs. I
creative
wrote the songs
process.
40 years ago. So it's sad, and I want people to just
Yeah,
let go of any preconceived idea that you're echoing that you heard from
right,
somewhere else, and it
right.
resonates with you, so therefore that's what you believe. Let go of that.
Well, I love this tying it back into the echo because that's what it is. It's like it's what my previous experience means told me this is what life is. And people being born today, they don't have that echo. They're going to have different
Exactly.
echoes.
Exactly.
Whatever. It's like
Yes.
getting on with. I'm more of a technologist, so I'm always like, tools are never evil. They're just tools,
They're just
and so
tools. Yeah.
just figure out how to use it for your benefit. I mean, there's things you got to worry about, of course, a little bit with these things,
Sure.
but
Sure.
you know, there's nothing new in regards to dealing with new technologies. It's same old, same old, same old to me.
Yeah, and the constant in it all, Jim, I know you'll agree with this, is we're human beings. We're a species. We're millions of years old in
Right,
terms of the mechanisms evolution.
right,
And when you keep that in mind and you look at, like you just said, the technology as it evolves is a tool for the human, you can either do something good with it
yeah,
or you can do something dark with it.
yeah, right,
And I'm the light man. I try to do good with everything that I can get my
right.
hands on, from a hammer to an AI large language model.
Right. I love it. I think the positive voices need to be louder
Yeah,
than the negative
yeah.
ones.
Here, here.
It's like a lot of, it's very easy to be negative and be down on everything. Oh, we're going to lose all our jobs. It's like it's complete nonsense.
Yes.
We're at full employment after the invention of the steam engine, invention of the integrated circuit, blah, 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 blah. We're still at full employment, guys. Humans are creative. We are going to figure out stuff to do with ourselves.
Yes, we are so wonderfully creative, and some people have missed out on their opportunity to create, because of
Yeah.
the
Well,
echo. Yeah.
maybe if they read your book, maybe that will help,
Well,
wrap their mind.
that's the dream. That's the dream, Jim.
Right, exactly. Well, cool, man. Well, all right. So we got a few minutes left on the podcast, but before we get out of here, there's always a couple questions I like to ask.
Okay.
And one is, since we're talking about technology, one is, in regards to technology, like you said, that you want to kind of have a positive impact of it or take on it. But in your day-to-day life these days, How are you using AI to benefit your sort of personal life? Like there's projects you can do, like we just discussed, but is AI starting to creep into your personal life or your personal routine? Or I just want to see where people are at with it.
Oh, this is a beautiful question, Jim. I appreciate you asking this because I think I have an answer that will be very satisfying to you.
Okay.
As you know, I come from a family that has challenges, right? A black sheep.
Right.
And I used AI. First of all, I trained my project file because I pay for ChatGPT. You get
Okay.
way more power when you pay for it.
Right.
I trained it with models of nonviolent communication. I
Oh,
trained it on what I would naturally say in a certain situation. I gave it, literally hundreds of pages of reference. And then
wow.
when I was
Where do those references come from?
I've been writing them down for years. Always written everything down. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And I
Keep
even took handwritten stuff a few years back and I digitized them and turned them into text. So
Okay.
I got even pre computer day writings
Okay.
into the model.
Gotcha.
So then I used this model to help me communicate to my family in ways that would statistically, theoretically, from a psychological understanding point of view, be less
Yep.
likely to trigger them.
Right. Right.
At the end, I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be, but sometimes when you're talking about humans, you can only get so far with them.
That's right.
But I was very much at peace because everything that I communicated did so in a non-violent way. I didn't judge them. I didn't tell them they were wrong. But that's all I got back, which is what I've gotten back from them my entire life. And I love them anyway, but I can choose not to deal with it. And
Right.
AI helped me to navigate that and then left it so that I had no regrets when the goodbye had to happen because I
Right.
did everything that I could.
Right. Right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I did not see that coming.
You didn't see it coming. I think in a
But I'm
nutshell,
very,
it's slowing the process down is what's important.
yeah.
And even
Yeah.
without a tool like AI that you can train to know who you are,
Yeah.
the wisdom of slow down if you're having an emotional reaction, ask yourself what you're feeling and why, what's it rooted to.
Right.
There's a song that you may not have heard it if you haven't looked at my catalog called No Words to Say. There's a line that says, "Don't let the words my mouth may speak remind you of the past. There's something here that's blocked by fear and the darkness that it casts."
Right.
And that's exactly what I've always experienced with my family and what I was trying to navigate past with an assist from AI. Ultimately wasn't successful, but I really truly believe that they understand me better because it was very clean. No finger pointing, no anger, none of
Right.
that stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Super interesting,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. I've had a lot of those challenges myself. I still have them.
Yeah. We talked a
Uh,
little bit
I
about that
don't,
last time.
I don't know if I would go to AI, but I might. I've actually considered it just to ask questions of like how to think about this or how to think about that.
If
Um,
you use your account long enough, Jim, and don't throw away important stuff, just organize it,
right.
it's remarkable how well it recalls what you've already worked on.
Right.
There are times when I actually ask my assistant, "So I noticed that you brought up such and such. We haven't talked about that for a year." And it'll say, "Oh, yeah, I'm glad you noticed that. I was recalling the time we were doing this. And I thought it was really relevant to what we." It's
All
like,
right, man.
but that's
Oh my
that's
God. What is happening?
like any relationship, even though this is not a human, the
Right.
record of the words that you exchanged and the why you
In there.
exchanged them,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Wow. It's just like a woman. They will never AI will never forget, man.
Yeah, that's a
You're
double-edged
never
sword
forgetting
though.
one conversation that you had. But anyways, just joking. Okay. Well, I got I got one final question for you here,
Sure.
and that is after all these reinventions, okay,
Mhm.
can you share with the audience a reinvention revelation about yourself or your path or your experience that could maybe help others in their life if they're interested in changing paths or going faster down a certain path? Something they figured out over time of being creative, whether it relates to entrepreneurship or your businesses, something you found out about yourself or about life.
It's a good question. I think because of the nature of the impact of a very specific learning, which I'm about to share with you, that is so obvious within civilization and culture, which is the physical decline of people's bodies when they're like me and they don't like to go to the gym. They don't go and pump iron for 30, 60, 90 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And we've gotten to the point in civilization where we say things like, oh, I'm just getting old. We attribute the deterioration and the decline to time, not to the way we're not using our bodies, right? So the thing that I learned about myself was that I don't like to do those strenuous things. I tried P90X in early 2000. Hated it. Absolutely hated it.
Okay.
Did I get results? Yes. But did I enjoy it? No. Unsustainable. So I reflected back on my days on the road, realizing that my body always felt good, knowing the reason why that was is the way I was using it. Living in a van, living on the ground, sleeping on the ground many nights causes your body to go into positions that people are going to the gym to artificially put their body in those positions. So if you just reflect on the way you move in life, reconsider even your furniture. Consider everything that's keeping you from getting down into a squat, getting down onto the floor. And then realize that that is taking away your capacity, not time, not age. At 62, I'm now able to do anything that I want to. I can get up and down from the floor holding a full martini glass without using my hands and not spill the martini.
Right.
2.5 years ago, I would try that and I would make the sound that those of us in our 60s are very prone to make. Do you know what the sound is, Jim? Exactly. Oof. It's oof.
Oh my God.
Oof.
Oh, my back.
And then you say, oh, Jim, are you okay? I'm just getting old. Right? It's like, no, that's not what's happening. Right? So I don't know if it's the answer that you're looking for, but we created a model that works for me, and I use it, and a few other people are now using it. It's called Feelness.
Okay.
It's the alternative to fitness, and it's triggered by the oof. If I get out of bed in the morning, or if you get out of bed in the morning and you hear yourself make that sound, oof, you immediately go to the prescription for getting out of bed, because I'm partnered with one of the smartest physiologists on the planet, Katrina Hawley. She's unbelievable. She can watch somebody move and say exactly what the problems are and where they're headed, right?
Yep.
We built all these prescriptions for 9 routine daily tasks that will prevent you from losing your capacity as you get older without having to go to the gym. It's easy. I do 10 minutes a day, twice a day, maybe. And I don't have any complaints. I can walk, I can bend over, I can get up and down, I can sit for a couple hours. I don't sit much anymore. I either stand or I'm on the floor. I'm at a standing desk now. So my words of wisdom are, don't allow your lifestyle to trick you into thinking you're just getting old. It's your lifestyle. Reconsider the way you're moving and the way you're not moving, and you will, let's go back. Well, why were we here, Jim? We talked about it. To have a great experience in our lives. If your vehicle fails you, right? If the vehicle that you're stuck in, right, the doors are welded shut.
Yeah, right. That's all we got.
Right. The most important thing any of us can do is ensure the integrity of the vehicle we ride in. And if it doesn't require going to the gym, who wouldn't be interested in a way to do that?
Right. Well, I get it. Yeah, and it does. Yeah, it doesn't need to be massive, intense hours and hours at the gym. It just needs to be a little bit of discomfort here and there, once in a while. And it can work
rotation, extension, flexion. Those 3 things. Every joint from your toes, ankles, knees, hips, spine, neck and shoulders, elbows, wrists, fingers. Every one of those parts of your body can flex, extend, and rotate. If you
Right.
just build, I call it roflextension. If you just build those movements into your daily life, you don't need the gym.
Right.
If everything rotates, flexes, extends a little tiny bit every day, you're good to go.
Good to go. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think we're good to go. Mark, if people are interested in checking out the Echo in the Voice, the new novel by JW Kindbloom. Is that right?
JW
Did I say that
Kindbloom.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Where should people find that? Where should they go? Is there
Yeah, you
anyone?
can search for it on Amazon. But
Okay.
for all things that we've talked about today,
Yeah.
markfirehammer.com has a jumping off link for everything.
Okay.
There's a
Perfect.
jump off link for the novel, for feelness, for the artist's imagined stuff. Yeah.
I got you. All right. I'll have that link in the show notes so you can look
Right
for
on.
that link
Appreciate
there.
that, Jim. Yeah.
Otherwise, Mark, thanks for being on, man. It's awesome. I loved it. We could keep
Let's do it
talking.
again sometime.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man.
Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of. Hey, revolutionaries, if you enjoyed today's episode and today's guest, let them know by commenting on their Facebook page, finding their Twitter handle or Instagram feed, and letting them know you heard them on Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, and tell them what you got out of the episode, what you really liked, or how they inspired you. I know they would get a kick out of it and will help others find the same value that you found.